Hello and welcome to the application testing course. In this first video, we'll discuss the concept of application testing, and we'll get to see how the different components of the UiPath test suite, powered by some of the other features of the UiPath platform, bring a unique approach to application testing. It's an approach that can save time and money, as well as increase the quality of the software you are creating. Let's start with the obvious question. What exactly is application testing? Simply put, application testing is the sum of methods to check whether the software product matches expected requirements, and to find bugs in it. Some may be quick to point out that this is the definition of software testing. So the question arises, why do we call it application testing? And the reason is simple, RPA is also software, and it requires RPA testing, which means that only the combination of testing applications and testing automations is really software testing. So, to clarify, in this course, we're discussing application testing. This is a phase in the software development lifecycle. According to this, the typical software development project starts with planning, then goes into design, then there's the implementation, after which we get to the testing phase, which is followed by the actual deployment. These phases are the same and come in the same order, no matter the approach we're using. Of course, in a methodology of type waterfall, they are differentiated more clearly, given that the cycles are longer. And by the time you get to testing, months have passed, and what was agreed during planning has been changed entirely. In fact, the length was one of the main reasons for which waterfall was altered, and even replaced, with agile methodologies. But here's the thing, even if we're dealing with shorter development cycles, the so-called sprints, you still plan them. The design is there, so is the development, and the implementation. Then you get to testing and deployment, which is typically done continuously or, anyway, more often. So all the stages are there, and there's a lot of pressure on the testing effort. First of all, because it typically starts late, once the features are finished. And if testing happens late, defects are found late, and changes are more costly and harder to do. Moreover, if testing is done manually, it takes a lot of time, so there's additional pressure to make it more effective. To understand what can be done, let's look at how we think the development and testing should ideally happen, and then how they are usually done in real life. In an ideal case, you develop a first feature in the first sprint. Then you have others, and you increment the features as the sprints pass and the team gains velocity. In such a scenario, you would be able to keep up with the testing. It would be simple. As the feature is being developed, you also create the test cases. And when the feature is ready to be tested, you run the test cases and make a clear-cut decision. But what usually happens in real life is extremely different, as different developers start features in parallel. At the beginning, they define the object model, do the database setup, and create the infrastructure. There's no user interface, so nothing to test. Then the same features get to the points where APIs and other services, such as logging, are developed. And if the testing relies entirely on the UI, no testing is done. And only then you get to the front-end development, with the different versions of the user interface, desktop and mobile, different operating systems, different browsers, and so on. This is the point in which testing starts. And it covers a lot of features at the same time, and it runs against the clock. This usually serves as an excuse to go for manual testing, which then stacks up the costs. So what's the solution then? There are two, and you probably know them already. Testing early and testing continuously. Of course, this is easier said than done. The real question is how, and here's where our approach comes into play. Share, reuse, update. You need a feature-rich solution to help you start testing as soon as possible. Then to reuse as much as possible as the testing advances. And finally, to keep your test cases up to speed with the features, as they are developed, fine-tuned and updated. Let's look one more time at the same scenario. As the databases are being set up for the features, it's already time for database testing. When API services start to become available, database testing can be powered up with API testing. It can also be a good time to test the limits of your data model with synthetic data. And as the feature development transitions from the backend to the front end, some user interface mockups may become available. So it's a good time to start working on the automated test cases for the user interface. The UiPath computer vision may be the easiest way to kickstart this stage. These middle stages are a time when the work on the backend level is close to being finalized, but not quite there yet. It's also the time when most of the work is done on the front-end level, but the user interface is still not exactly in its final version. Testing whatever can be tested, and the reusability are two of the factors which can heavily influence the success at this time. Finally, the features reach full maturity and approach deployment. And that's when the test cases are grown into a full regression test set, covering the UI level and the API level. We're here to tell you that UiPath Test Suite can help you test early and test continuously by making the share, reuse, update approach a reality, and automating the parts of application testing which can be automated. It combines best-in-class testing features with automation features at the front end and the back end level for desktop, web, or mobile application, no matter the service or database used. You can use UiPath Test Manager to manage your application's requirements and the automated and manual test cases. Or even better, you can make use of the out-of-the-box integrations of Test Manager with the most commonly used LM tools, such as Jira or Azure DevOps. Or you can leverage the Test Manager SDK to integrate with any LM tool on the market. You can start creating test cases as soon as the database is set up with the dedicated activity package in Studio Pro. When the API is ready, it's time to leverage Studio Pro to automate SOAP or REST services, like WSDL or Swagger. You can do it directly, or by making use of our Postman integration, if the developers already created assets there. Okay, we talk test automation. We talk test data management. The same Studio Pro offers advanced capabilities of generating synthetic test data, which can then be fed to a test data queue in Orchestrator, or consumed directly. As soon as the user interface is available, the UI testing can begin. It can be just mockups, or it can be the earliest and rawest shape. With computer vision and object repository, not only can you save time by starting early, you can also easily update your identifiers in one place to follow the user interface changes. At a certain point, you'll need to make sure that your application works the same on different operating systems, different browsers, and on mobile devices. UiPath Test Suite is here to serve with mobile device automation and the UI element libraries. Last but not least, the development is probably managed in a continuous integration and continuous development framework. Guess what? We've got you covered once again with the integration between UiPath Test Suite and CI/CD tools such as Jenkins or Azure DevOps. In the next couple of lessons, we are going to dive into each of these stages and get to see in action Studio Pro, Test Manager, and the other components mentioned here. So stay tuned.